Thank you very much for making a date with me today on the Marketplace. Welcome back. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has charged the corporation to find innovative means to protect depositors' funds. Dr. Bawumia made the call when opening the African Regional Assistance Committee workshop in Accra. This is a report by Ebenezer Sabuti.
The Ghana Deposit Protection Scheme is established to reimburse insured depositors where the Bank of Ghana revokes the licenses of a bank or specialized deposit-taking institution. The scheme, which began operation, has been hailed as the perfect response to the cry of depositors. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, in a keynote speech at the workshop and unveiling ceremony for the scheme, tasked the corporation to make Ghana's banking sector attractive.
Operating in a largely reformed financial sector, the corporation needs to ensure the necessary public education about the scheme, its operations, and benefits to every depositor. Such an education is an invaluable public good, and we must get on with it as soon as possible. The general public must gain the confidence that even in the event of a failure of a financial institution, the funds of depositors are secure, at least to a certain limit. This new deposit insurance scheme, in addition to the sound prudential regulation by the Bank of Ghana, should ensure that the Ghanaian financial sector is set on a good path to financial stability.
On his part, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, expressed confidence that the establishment of the corporation provides the country with an opportunity to showcase the readiness to strengthen the financial sector.
The establishment of GDPC therefore comes as a big relief and a welcome addition to Ghana's financial safety net apparatus, as it puts the nation in a state of readiness to better manage the failure of banks and deposit-taking financial institutions. Indeed, the importance of the deposit protection to stability cannot be overemphasized, and this is clearly illustrated by the theme of this workshop: deposit protection, a catalyst for financial stability.
The corporation is the sole mandatory body for the Deposit Protection Scheme. Ibn Sabute's report for Joy Business.
Also, the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation has been launched to help deal with such issues, and in-house researcher Philip Namfuri joins me for some more education on the Depositors Protection Scheme. What exactly is it, and what has it got to do?
Okay, Emmanuel, thank you very much. So the Deposit Protection Scheme is mainly financial insurance to protect depositors by insuring their deposits in the case of a bank or a specialized deposit-taking institution failure, like we had very recently. So when your bank collapses, this scheme steps in to protect you. What we saw with the financial crisis was the government stepping in to more or less save depositors. Now we have a scheme in place that's going to save us. So that's essentially what the scheme is.
And what? So the scheme is the Ghana Depositors Protection.
Okay, so there's an act, Ghana Deposit Protection Act 931 as amended. Then under the act, there's a scheme, there's a fund, and then there's a Ghana Deposit Corporation. So that's a GDPC. So the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation manages the Ghana Deposit Protection Scheme. So the scheme comes under the corporation. The corporation is supposed to ensure that it's run on a daily, is run like an institution, let me say, or like a corporate body with a board, CEO, staff, etc.
So where will all these monies, to save depositors come from? Okay,
so we are learning that government of Ghana and through the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana have given some seed money. But as time goes on, this will be the premiums will be taken from the banks. So the banks and the specialized depositing institutions are supposed to make payments to the Deposit Protection Corporation, which will be gathered and then invested in securities with less risky securities over the course of time. Yeah.
So that's basically so in effect, our consumers and other SDIs, will be liable to pay for this scheme.
Very, very good question. That's the key part of all this. Customers, consumers of banks and specialized depositing institutions should not suffer charges imposed on them. They've had broad consultations over the course of the preparation for this. And if you go through some of their documents, it's been stated in there categorically that customers are not supposed to pay for anything. So the banks and the SDIs are handling these premium payments. It should no way affect your charges or your fees when you go to your bank or your savings and loan institution to transact.
So how much are we talking about here, and what sort of insurance will be available?
Okay, so for a bank, your uninsured deposit or uninsured depositor is liable or can get 6,250 Ghana cedis in the event of a bank failure.
Okay.
And an SDI, a specialized deposit taking institution, you can get 1,250. So for a bank, you're getting 6,250, and then for an SDI, you're getting 1,250. Now, there are some scenarios in which it works. So let me explain one to you. Let's assume your account has 10,000 Ghana cedis, and your bank collapses. Out of that 10,000 Ghana cedis, the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation is going to give you 6,250. That's the maximum they can go for the insured deposits. Then your 3,750, the rest of it, they will issue you a certificate, and then you go to your receiver. And after the liquidation process is done and then they realize the assets, then what is left of your funds will be given to you. So if I have 5,000 Ghana cedis in my account and it's less than the cap of 6,250, I get all my 5,000. Once I cross that threshold of 6,250, and like I said, if you have 10,000, they'll give you your 6,250, then your 3,750, you go through the process as we are seeing now, where you go to the receiver, validation. But then with this one, the Protection Corporation will give you a certificate, which you will use to show that I have taken my insured deposit of this amount. The rest of it, I'm coming for it from the receiver.
So to a large extent, it secures, your deposits.
Yes, it does.
So that you don't end up losing a significant aspect.
It does,
which is very good.
Very, very good. And then the key point we should note here: some were complaining about the low amount, but if you read the arguments are that it's supposed to ensure that there's no moral hazard, in the sense that a bank can wake up, function poorly, and collapse, knowing that depositors are safe. So it's supposed to act as a safeguard to moral hazard. But over a period of time, not more than 3 years after the commencement of it, they can review the amounts on it, which obviously will come with reviews in the premiums allocated.
So what about foreign currency holders?
Okay, so foreign currency holdings are also protected, or foreign currency deposits are also protected. However, the reimbursements will be done in Ghana cedis. So that's the only caveat there. They are also covered, they're the same amounts, but they'll give it to you in Ghana cedis instead of the foreign currency. Some may say
and what's the condition? Is it only when your bank collapses or you go into crisis? I mean, what kind of
Once
conditions?
the Bank of Ghana steps in and revokes the license of a bank or an STI and says, we've revoked the license, this bank is done, it's collapsed, then the Deposit Protection Corporation will step in. It has some stipulated timelines within which it has to respond to the depositors or the customers of these affected institutions. That's if it happens again. So that's
an obvious breakthrough in the financial sector.
Yes, supposed to bring some confidence and trust into the system again.
To depositors. And that's my colleague, Philip Namfuri, bringing us up to speed with some aspects of the Deposit Corporation deposits. What was it again?
Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation,
Ghana
GDPC.
Protection Corporation, all right. Very, very interesting comments here. And let's go on to other stories. Tax expert Abdallah Ali Nachian has kicked against distress actions by the Ghana Revenue Authority as a way of helping to retrieve taxes from defaulting companies. According to him, the shutdown of companies and seizure of goods is rather a disincentive to tax compliance. Ali Nachian spoke to Joy Business at the KPMG 2020 Budget Forum. Bismarck Ausa was there.
In recent times, the Tax Enforcement Unit of the GRA has intensified the clamping down on companies defaulted in the payment of taxes. The move, which forms part of efforts to ensure compliance of the tax laws, also comes at a time when the presidency has raised concerns about the lack of action by the authority to meet its revenue targets. But tax expert Abdallah Ali Nachia thinks otherwise. He says the distress action should be the last resort if all other options fail.
If you go locking up the person's shop because he owes you, he is out of business. So people who would have supplied him and he would have withheld taxes and given to you, you won't get it. VAT he would have charged if he was still working and giving you, you won't get it. So you are closing avenues for your own tax. Another way I was thinking about is, can't we place somebody there just as we've done with receivers for the bank? You put somebody there, any business he does for the day, the money is taken and paid to GRA until you recover your money and then you withdraw that agent. It's I think, because what we need is the revenue for the state to develop. So why do we block the opportunity for the person to make money and for us to recover?
In a keynote address at the forum, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta reiterated government's commitment to fiscal discipline entering into the election year.
Of the fiscal excesses that usually occur in election year, and have therefore committed to ensure that the economy is managed to prevent a reoccurrence of fiscal slippages in 2020 and another election year. So that the macro targets for the 2020 budget growth rate of 6.8%, non-oil rate of 6.7%, end period inflation of 8%, overall fiscal deficit equivalent to 4.7% of GDP, squeaking a primary surplus of 0.7% of GDP, and then maintain our international reserves to cover north of 3 months going forward.
Economist Dr. John Kwache, on his part, is urging government to tax big institutions like the telecommunications companies and banks.
There are areas that we could have, if you take bolder steps, we can rake in more revenue.
Okay.
And even in a developing country like Ghana, you see, you can introduce selective taxation of the booming sectors of the economy for development. And by the booming sectors, I'm talking about the mining sector, the banking sector, the telecommunications sector. They are the booming sectors of the economy where income is being generated. So, tax them.
The KPMG 2020 Budget Forum is an annual event designed to provide a platform for public discussion on economic or fiscal policies and government priorities as proposed in its annual budget. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
The Bank of Ghana is adopting measures to avoid further revocation of licenses in helping to address challenges with rural and community banks in future. First Deputy Governor Dr. Masolo Pukwaferi says the central bank will collaborate with ARB Apex Bank to formulate appropriate mechanisms to plug all loopholes. He believes the rural banking sector is crucial to improving the economy. Nana Yao Jima has more in this report.
Since 2017, regulators of the financial services sector have effected reforms, resulting in revocation of licenses of some financial institutions. As of July this year, statistics from the Bank of Ghana shows 114 rural and community banks had met the minimum capital requirement of 1 million Ghana cedis. 13 of them recorded varied paid-up capital of between 500,000 Ghana cedis and 1 million cedis, while 17 others achieved below 500,000 Ghana cedis. Rural banks hold an average capital adequacy ratio of 13.9%, above the 10% threshold, and significant improvement in non-performing loans. This shows resilience and stable sector with potential for improved services. Dr. Opokwaferi says revised measures drawn for the sector will deal with challenges similar to those found in other categories of the financial sector.
Bank of Ghana is aware of the challenges facing the sector and their unique role in the rural communities. It is for this reason that the Bank of Ghana decided not to include the rural and community bank segment of the financial sector in the reform process that began in 2017. However, you will also agree with me that the rural banks that wish to deploy resources towards the financial inclusion drive must be strong, liquid, and well capitalized. It is unfortunate that our assessments over the years are almost reflective of what happened in the banking and SDI sectors. A number of rural community banks are faced with serious regulatory and supervisory concerns such as low capital adequacy ratios. As I mentioned, the Bank of Ghana is working together with the Ministry of Finance and the Apex Bank to implement a reform plan that is to seek to address the current challenges facing the rural and community banks.
The Bank of Ghana has extended deadline for rural and community banks yet to meet the minimum capital requirement to 2020. Dr. Opokwaferi reveals the state of the financial sector after the reforms which commenced in 2017.
The banking and specialized deposit-taking institution sector is currently strong and better positioned to withstand external shocks compared to the situation at the beginning of 2017. The remaining institutions are better capitalized, liquid, are profitable and more efficient, and have adequate capital buffers to enable it to manage adverse external developments.
Meanwhile, the Association of Rural Banks says it is capitalizing on its unique position to introduce digital financial service technology to advance financial sector inclusion. Executive Director Comfort Owusu wants all small and medium enterprises to take advantage of the opportunity to improve their lot.
We all know that in our communities, we may not have people necessarily doing big business. But if you go there with your 1 cedi, I tell you the bank will take it. Tomorrow you add 2 cedis to it, becomes 3 cedis. There and then you build up your capital. And based on that, the bank is able to give you a form of loan to go and do your business.
For Joy Business, Nana Aljima reporting.
Now, delegates at this year's Global Business Forum in Dubai, the United Emirates, on Monday focused on how to forge linkages that will enable Africa and Dubai to work together and build powerful and creative partnerships among aspiring young entrepreneurs, established businesses and governments. GBF Africa 2019 is organized by the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry. There's more in this report. Under the theme Scale Up Africa, the 5th Global Business Forum, the largest Africa and Dubai meeting, attracted several heads of state, including President George Weah of Liberia, President Danny Faure of Seychelles, President Emmerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, Prime Minister Ruhakana Ruganda of Mozambique, and Prime Minister Rim al-Hashimi of Uganda. Over 1,500 delegates from Africa, United Arab Emirates, and other parts of the world were also present to discuss the scale of African businesses. This year, the forum puts the spotlight on promising startups that are driving business growth in Africa and examines the important role of cross-border cooperation in supporting the continent's economic growth and development. To this end, the Dubai Chamber International Office sees this as an avenue for the future. Its president and CEO Hamad Bouamim told Joy Business the relationship between Ghana and the rest of the continent should be a win-win affair. He said Dubai is ready to mentor and finance startups and small and medium enterprises which have potentials.
Fundraising, as we call it. We don't want to call it financing because, you know, when you do financing, the cost is high. But when you say fundraising, you start to talk about something maybe more of something start as debt, can be equity, somebody can be a partner into things. And honestly, Dubai can offer a lot in that area. We have the DIFC, and that was one of the sessions where we believe that if there will be, if you can bring these businesses, put them in the right package, get them to a certain size, and this is where we looked at the 3 years, and mentor them and advise them so they can showcase and sell themselves. We believe they will have much, much better opportunity to succeed in fundraising.
Meanwhile, President of Liberia, George Weah, in an interaction with delegates, enumerated the enormous opportunities that exist in Africa and reiterated the commitment of African leaders to ensure the right conditions are created for investments to be beneficial to all. Meanwhile, the Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Yofi Grant, has disclosed that the ailing textile industry is likely to be revamped soon. This is because more than 5 of the management and owners of the world's largest textile manufacturing and chain of stores within the textile industry, including H&M, are coming to Ghana for a 2-day visit. The team will be exploring opportunities of partnerships of setting up their manufacturing firms in the country.
And as I don't know whether you've seen, but we have some of the biggest textiles companies visiting through. They went to Togo first. They're coming to Ghana tonight and will be there for the day tomorrow. And then they'll go to Cote d'Ivoire. And they're going to look at where it's most competitive and comparatively comfortable.
Have you convinced them enough to stay with us?
Well, I think Ghana has an edge, a significant edge, but it also depends on what terms of agreement we can come. But I believe that Ghana would be the right place for them to come. I think logistically we are very well positioned.
Is there a plan, because we already have ATL, GTP, and all those people who seem to be struggling, I put it. Right. I mean, is there a plan to get some of these investors to partner with them to help them scale up production?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Any country a businessman goes, they want to look at what is happening at the domestic sector, and that's it. And already we've seen talks going on partnerships, but where the partnership is not possible, then of course, I mean, you have to look at another arrangement. But the real intent is that we can get investment that partners with local enterprise, and that is why the GIPC, when we go out, we take our private business people with us. In fact, I'm sure you've heard, because it came out from one of your radio stations, that we have a group of close to 50 private business people who are traveling with us to Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, just 2 days each. And in each there's going to be investment fora or forums, and there are already B2Bs already arranged, such that they get the best of these things. The intention is to create partnerships between some of the investors in these countries and our private sector.
And on that note, to wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace, many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We are free. Have a good afternoon.